Rob Reiner, known for his role as the father in The Wolf of Wall Street, and his wife were found in their home. There were no signs of forced entry, no robbery. A few hours later, police arrested a man, not a stranger, but their own son. It all started at a Christmas party, but what went wrong, and why did a family evening turn into a terrible tragedy that shook the world? This is the story of Rob Reiner and what happened on December 14th, 2025. Brentwood, Los Angeles, Sunday, December 14th, 2025, 3:30 p.m. The afternoon sun hangs high over one of LA's most exclusive neighborhoods, a beautiful property, elegant, the kind of home you'd expect from someone who spent decades in Hollywood. But something feels wrong. She can't explain it. Just this feeling in her gut, getting stronger with every step toward the front door. Her parents hadn't answered their phones all morning. That wasn't like them, especially not Dad. Rob always answered, always. The holiday wreath hangs on the door, bright and cheerful. She reaches for the handle. It's unlocked. That's strange. Her parents were careful about security, always locked the doors, always. Mom? Dad? No answer. She pushes the door open slowly, steps inside, and immediately she knows something is terribly wrong. The silence hits her first, not the comfortable quiet of an empty house. Something else, something heavy, oppressive, like the air itself has thickened, pressing down on her chest. The Christmas tree stands in the living room, lights still twinkling, presents wrapped and waiting underneath, the smell of pine. And something else, something metallic that makes her stomach clench. Mom? Dad? Are you here? Her voice sounds too loud in the stillness, too sharp. It echoes wrong. She walks deeper into the house. Her hands are trembling now, cold despite the warm afternoon, her breathing quick and shallow. That's when she sees them. Rob Reiner, 78 years old, the man who directed When Harry Met Sally, The Princess Bride, A Few Good Men, who produced The Wolf of Wall Street, a legend in Hollywood, her father. And Michelle Singer Reiner, 68 years old, photographer, producer, activist, her mother, both of them, not moving, not breathing, just still. For a moment, Romy can't move, can't think, can't process what she's seeing. Her brain refuses to accept it. This can't be real. This can't be her parents. This can't be happening. Her hands shake so violently she can barely pull out her phone. Her fingers feel numb. She has to try 3 times to unlock it, to dial 911. 911, what's your emergency? She tries to speak. Her mouth opens, but no sound comes out at first. Just breath, rapid, panicked. My parents, please, something's wrong. They're not. 3:38 p.m., Pacific Standard Time. Emergency services dispatch units to the Brentwood address. The paramedics arrive fast, 6 minutes. But even as they rush through that door, even as they run their protocols, check vitals, try everything they know, everyone in that house already knows the truth. It's too late. It was too late long before Romy opened that door. This isn't natural causes. This isn't a medical emergency. This isn't an accident. This is something else entirely. And within minutes, the Los Angeles Police Department's Robbery Homicide Division is on scene. These aren't regular patrol officers. This is the specialized unit that handles the worst cases, the most serious investigations. They seal off the house. Yellow tape goes up. Neighbors start gathering on the street, phones out, filming, whispers spreading like wildfire. What happened? I heard it was the Reiners. Rob Reiner? The director? The investigation begins immediately. Crime scene techs move through every room, photographing, documenting, looking for evidence. And what they find, or more importantly, what they don't find, tells them everything they need to know. No signs of forced entry. None. Every door, every window, all secure. Nothing broken, nothing tampered with. No robbery, nothing taken. Rob's wallet still there. Michelle's jewelry untouched. Expensive electronics sitting in plain sight. No random violence. This wasn't some intruder who panicked. This was targeted, deliberate, personal. The detectives look at each other. They know what this means. Whoever did this had access to the house. Whoever did this knew the Reiners, knew their routines, their security, their home. This was someone close. By 6 p.m., the investigation has a focus, a direction, a suspect. And that suspect is family. Rob Reiner wasn't just some Hollywood director. He was an institution, a legend who'd been in the business for over 5 decades. Born March 6, 1947 in the Bronx, New York, son of Carl Reiner, himself a comedy legend, Rob grew up surrounded by show business. It was in his blood. His father, Carl, was everywhere in the 1960s. The Dick Van Dyke Show, comedy albums with Mel Brooks, the 2,000-year-old man routines that became cultural touchstones. Carl Reiner was comedy royalty, and Rob grew up watching, learning, absorbing. But Rob didn't want to just follow in his father's footsteps. He wanted to make his own path. He started as an actor, got his break in the late 1960s doing small roles, guest appearances, working his way up. And then came 1971, All in the Family. Norman Lear's groundbreaking sitcom about Archie Bunker, the working-class bigot from Queens, and his liberal son-in-law, Michael Stivic. Rob played Michael, nicknamed Meathead by Archie, the young liberal arguing with the old conservative. Week after week, millions of Americans watched them clash over politics, race, religion, everything that divided America. The show was massive, #1 in the ratings for 5 consecutive years. Rob Reiner became a household name. Everyone knew Meathead. He stayed with the show for 8 years, from 1971 to 1979, won 2 Emmy Awards, became one of the most recognizable faces on television. But the whole time he was watching, learning, seeing how Norman Lear directed, how the writers crafted scripts, how you took controversial topics and made them entertaining, made people laugh while making them think. By the late 1970s, Rob knew what he wanted. He didn't want to just act anymore. He wanted to direct, to tell his own stories, to create something that would last. So in 1984, at 37 years old, he made his directorial debut. This is Spinal Tap, a mockumentary about a fictional British heavy metal band, made on a tiny budget with mostly improvised dialogue. Nobody expected much from it. It became a cult classic. Critics loved it. Musicians loved it. People quoted it endlessly. These go to 11. There's a fine line between stupid and clever. The Stonehenge scene, the exploding drummers. Rob had proven himself. He wasn't just Meathead anymore. He was a director, a real one. And then he didn't stop. 1985, The Sure Thing, a romantic comedy that showed he could do more than just mockumentaries. 1986, Stand By Me, based on a Stephen King novella, 4 boys on a journey to find a body, a coming-of-age story that hit people right in the heart. Critics raved. The film became a classic. People still watch it today, 39 years later. 1987, The Princess Bride. This is the one. This is the film that defines Rob Reiner for millions of people. A fairy tale, a swashbuckling adventure, a romance, a comedy, all wrapped into one perfect package. Hello, my name is Inigo Montoya. You ended my father. Prepare to face consequences. As you wish. Inconceivable. Have fun storming the castle. Lines that became part of the culture. A movie that flopped initially at the box office, but found its audience on video. And then that audience never stopped growing. Parents showed it to their kids. Those kids grew up and showed it to their kids. Generation after generation falling in love with Wesley and Buttercup, with Inigo and Fezzik, with the story within a story. The Princess Bride made Rob Reiner immortal. Even if he'd never made another film, this one would have been enough. But he kept going. 1989, When Harry Met Sally, Nora Ephron's script, Billy Crystal and Meg Ryan. The question, can men and women be friends without romantic feelings getting in the way? The deli scene, Meg Ryan faking it, the older woman at the next table. I'll have what she's having. That scene alone is more famous than most entire movies. The film was a phenomenon. It redefined romantic comedies. Every rom-com made since owes something to When Harry Met Sally. 1990, Misery, Stephen King again, Kathy Bates as the psychotic fan, James Caan as the writer she captures. Terrifying, brilliant, Bates won the Oscar. 1992, A Few Good Men, Tom Cruise, Jack Nicholson, Demi Moore. A military courtroom drama that grabbed you by the throat and didn't let go. You want the truth? You can't handle the truth. Nicholson's performance in that scene is legendary. Nominated for an Oscar. The film itself nominated for Best Picture. Rob was on top of the world. Film after film, success after success. He wasn't just good, he was one of the best directors working. Through the 1990s and 2000s, he kept making films. Not all hits. North in 1994 was savaged by critics. Roger Ebert called it one of the worst films ever made. But even great directors have failures. He bounced back. The American President in 1995, Ghosts of Mississippi in 1996, The Bucket List in 2007 with Jack Nicholson and Morgan Freeman, and then in 2013 he produced The Wolf of Wall Street, Martin Scorsese directing, Leonardo DiCaprio starring as Jordan Belfort, the corrupt stockbroker living a life of excess. The film was controversial, criticized for glorifying bad behavior, but it was also brilliant, nominated for 5 Academy Awards, including Best Picture. Rob Reiner had done it. 50 years in the business, actor, director, producer, one of the most successful careers in Hollywood history. He'd worked with everyone, directed some of the biggest stars, created films that would outlive him. He had money, fame, respect, legacy. From the outside, his life looked perfect, but inside his family, cracks had been forming for years. Michelle Singer Reiner wasn't just Rob's wife. She was his creative partner, his collaborator, his equal. Born in 1957, Michelle came from a different world than Rob. Not Hollywood royalty, not show business legacy. She made her own way. She started as a photographer, serious work, artistic. She had an eye for capturing moments, for finding the human truth in a frame. Her work got noticed. Exhibitions, publications, she built a reputation. When she met Rob in the late 1980s, she was already established. She wasn't looking for fame by association. She had her own career, her own identity. They married in 1989, the same year when Harry Met Sally came out. Rob at the peak of his powers, Michelle bringing her own creative vision. She became involved in his productions, not just as his wife, but as a producer, someone with input, someone with ideas. They collaborated on projects, built things together. She also became an activist, fought for causes she believed in, women's rights, environmental issues, social justice. She used her platform, the visibility that came from being Rob Reiner's wife, to amplify things that mattered. By all accounts, their marriage was solid. Rob had been married before. His first marriage ended in the early 1980s. He had children from that marriage. But with Michelle, he'd found something lasting. Together, they had more children, built a blended family, tried to create something stable, something good. But raising children is hard under any circumstances. Raising them in Hollywood, in the shadow of a famous parent, with all the pressure and expectation that comes with that, nearly impossible. Nick Reiner was born in the early 1990s, Rob and Michelle's son. Growing up in Brentwood, private schools, every advantage money could buy. But advantages don't protect you from mental health issues. Money doesn't fix chemical imbalances in the brain. Friends say Nick struggled from a young age. Behavioral issues, mood swings, difficulty connecting with other children. Rob and Michelle did what any loving parents would do. They sought help. Therapists, specialists, testing to understand what was happening. The diagnoses varied over the years. Different doctors, different opinions, different treatment approaches. Some said anxiety disorders. Others suggested depression. Some mentioned possible personality disorders. The labels changed, but the core issue remained. Nick was struggling, and traditional approaches weren't helping. School was difficult. Social situations were difficult. Family gatherings were difficult. Everything that should have been normal for a teenager became a minefield. And always, always, there was the pressure of being Rob Reiner's son. Think about that for a moment. Your father is a legend. Your grandfather before him was a legend. Success and achievement woven into your family DNA going back generations. How do you measure up to that? How do you find your own identity when your last name carries so much weight? Some children of famous parents thrive on it. They use the connections, the opportunities, the doors that open automatically. They build their own careers in the industry. Others rebel against it, reject Hollywood entirely, move away, change their names, try to escape the shadow. But some children get trapped. They can't live up to the expectations, but they can't escape them either. They're stuck in this limbo where they're forever Rob Reiner's son instead of just themselves. Nick seemed to fall into that third category, trapped, unable to meet expectations he never asked for, unable to escape a legacy he was born into. And as he got older, as he moved from teenager to young adult, the problems got worse instead of better. The arguments started in Nick's late teens. Nothing unusual at first. All teenagers clash with their parents. It's normal, part of growing up, part of establishing independence. But Nick's arguments were different, more intense, more frequent, escalating in ways that frightened the family. Rob and Michelle tried everything: family therapy, individual therapy for Nick, different medications, different approaches. They sent him to treatment programs, residential facilities where he could get intensive help, programs that cost tens of thousands of dollars, maybe more. Sometimes it seemed to work. Nick would stabilize. Things would get better for weeks or even months. The family would breathe, hope, think maybe this time it would stick. Then something would trigger him, some perceived slight, some argument, some disappointment, and everything would fall apart again. By his mid-20s, Nick had been through multiple treatment programs, had tried numerous medications, had seen dozens of mental health professionals. Nothing provided a lasting solution. And the thing about mental health treatment is, you can't force someone to get better. Even with all the money in the world, even with the best doctors, if the person isn't ready, isn't willing, isn't able to engage with treatment, it won't work. Nick's relationship with his parents deteriorated over the years. The love was still there. It never disappeared, but it got buried under layers of resentment, frustration, anger, disappointment. Rob and Michelle never gave up on him. That's important to understand. They could have walked away, cut him off. Lots of parents do when adult children become too difficult, too draining, too much to handle. They didn't. They kept trying, kept supporting him financially, kept being there even when he pushed them away. But there's only so much parents can do, especially when their son is an adult. You can't commit someone to treatment against their will unless they're in immediate danger. You can't force medication. You can't control their choices. All you can do is love them and hope it's enough. For years it was, barely. The family limped along, good days and bad days, good months and bad months. But underneath, the pressure was building, the resentment growing, the fractures spreading deeper. And nobody knew, not Rob, not Michelle, not Nick's siblings, not the therapists, how close they were to the breaking point. Friday, December 13th, 2025, 7 p.m. Conan O'Brien's house in Los Angeles, one of those sprawling properties that only people in entertainment can afford. Multiple levels, infinity pool, views of the city stretching out below. It's his annual holiday party. He's been doing it for years. A chance for people in the industry to gather, celebrate, decompress before the actual holidays. The guest list is impressive. Actors, directors, writers, producers, people who've worked with Conan over his decades in television, people who've become friends. Rob and Michelle arrive fashionably late. Rob in a blazer and slacks. Michelle in an elegant dress, camera around her neck like always. She can't help it, photographer's instinct. Even at parties, she's capturing moments. They make the rounds, hugs and handshakes. How have you been? We need to get together. The usual party conversations. People who see them later say they seemed good, happy. Rob was his usual self, funny, engaged, that quick wit that made him so successful. Michelle was warm, asking about people's families, their projects. Everything seemed normal, perfect even. Nick arrived separately. He'd been invited, whether by Conan directly or through his parents isn't clear. But he was there, and immediately people noticed something off. The way he moved through the rooms, jerky, agitated, his eyes scanning constantly, like he was looking for something or someone. His jaw clenched, his hands flexing and unflexing. Some people tried to make conversation, small talk, holiday pleasantries. Nick's responses were clipped, short, not quite rude, but not friendly either, like he was barely present. One guest later told police it reminded them of someone on the edge of a panic attack. That barely controlled energy, that sense that something was about to burst. For the first hour, Nick and Rob avoided each other. Whether consciously or unconsciously, they stayed on opposite sides of the party. Different rooms, different conversations. Michelle noticed. Of course she noticed. She kept glancing between them, worry etched on her face. This was supposed to be a nice evening, a chance to relax, enjoy the season. But the tension was there, thick, growing. Around 8:30 p.m., it happened. No one's quite sure what triggered it. Maybe Nick approached Rob, maybe Rob approached Nick. Maybe they just ended up in the same space, and everything that had been building for years finally erupted. But suddenly, there were raised voices, sharp, angry, cutting through the party conversation like a blade. People turned. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. That uncomfortable moment when everyone's pretending not to notice, but absolutely everyone is paying attention. Nick and Rob, father and son, standing near the Christmas tree, because of course it happened near the Christmas tree, because life sometimes has a cruel sense of irony, their faces inches apart, both red, both furious. You never understood. You never even tried. Nick's voice, loud enough that people 3 rooms away could hear it. That's not fair, Nick. We've done everything. Rob trying to stay calm, that director's voice, the one he used on set when actors were spiraling, controlled, measured. But it wasn't working, not tonight. Everything? You've controlled everything. There's a difference. You wanted me to be you, to be him. Nick gestured wildly. I was never allowed to just be me. Michelle moved in, stepped between them, her hands out, trying to create physical space. Please, not here, not now. Let's go outside. Let's talk somewhere private. But Nick wasn't listening, couldn't listen. Whatever had been locked down inside him for years was flooding out. Private? Everything in this family is private. All the problems we pretend don't exist. All the issues we sweep under the rug. All the times you chose your precious reputation over actually helping me. That's not true. Rob's voice harder now, sharper. Every time you needed help, we were there. Every program, every doctor, You threw money at me. That's not the same as being there. That's not the same as actually seeing me. The argument escalated and escalated. Other guests stood frozen, unsure what to do. Intervene? Leave? Pretend they weren't witnessing a family falling apart in real time? Conan moved closer, ready to step in if needed. His house, his party, his responsibility to make sure things didn't get physical. But Rob and Nick weren't physical, just verbal. Just decades of pain and resentment and love and disappointment all pouring out at once. 10 minutes, 15, 20. Michelle crying now, silent tears running down her face as she stood between them, trying to be a barrier, trying to protect them both from each other. Other guests started quietly leaving, slipping out, not wanting to be part of this anymore, not wanting to carry these memories. Finally, around 9:15 p.m., Rob had had enough. His face was pale, his voice shaking, not with anger now, but with something else. Exhaustion, defeat, the realization that nothing he said would make a difference. We're leaving, Michelle, now. He took his wife's arm. Michelle looked back at Nick, wanted to stay, wanted to fix this, wanted to find some way to make everything okay. But Rob was already moving toward the door, already done. They grabbed their coats, Michelle's camera, Rob's phone. Quick apologies to Conan. So sorry, family emergency, you understand. Conan did understand. What else could he say? He walked them to the door, hugged them both. Call me if you need anything, anything at all. They drove away into the Los Angeles night, back to Brentwood, back to their beautiful house with the Christmas wreath on the door. Neither of them could have known they had less than 24 hours left to live. Inside the party, Nick stood alone near the Christmas tree, other guests giving him space, watching him carefully. His chest was heaving. His fists clenched so tight his knuckles had gone white. Tears on his face, whether from anger or pain or both, impossible to tell. He stayed another hour, moving through the rooms like a ghost, not talking to anyone, just present but not present. Then, around 10:15 p.m., he left too, walked out to his car, sat in the driver's seat for several minutes, just staring at the steering wheel. Finally, he started the engine, drove off. Several guests watched him go. Some thought about calling someone. The police? Rob and Michelle? A mental health crisis line? But what would they say? That someone had an argument with their parents? That's not illegal. That's not even unusual. So they didn't call, didn't intervene, just went back to the party, trying to recapture the festive mood, trying to forget what they'd witnessed. By midnight, the party was over. Guests dispersed to their own homes, their own families, their own holiday plans. And in Brentwood, in that beautiful house, Rob and Michelle Reiner went to sleep for the last time. Saturday, December 14th, morning. The sun rises over Los Angeles. Another beautiful California day. Clear skies, warm for December. In houses across the city, people wake up, make coffee, check their phones, start their Saturday routines. Rob and Michelle's house is quiet. Too quiet. Their usual Saturday morning rituals disrupted. Phone calls they always make, not made. Plans they had, not kept. But it's Saturday. People sleep in on Saturdays. Maybe they're tired from the party. Maybe they're avoiding their phones. Nobody thinks anything is wrong. Not yet. Nick's whereabouts during this time are unclear. Police are still piecing together the timeline. Where he was, what he was doing, when he went to his parents' house. Because he did go there. That much is certain. Sometime between Friday night and Sunday afternoon, he was in that house. The evidence proves it. But the exact timeline, the sequence of events, the moments that led to everything falling apart, those details remain sealed in police files. Evidence for the trial. Information that will be presented to a jury. What we know is that by Sunday afternoon, when Romy arrived at 3:30 p.m., it was already over. Already too late. Whatever happened hours before. Maybe the night before. Maybe early Sunday morning. The house gave up no clues about the exact timing, just the terrible aftermath. Sunday, December 14th, evening. By 9:15 p.m., police have located Nick. Near the USC campus in downtown LA, about 12 miles from Brentwood. Multiple patrol cars converge. 6 officers. They're not taking chances. They don't know if he's armed. Don't know what he might do. Nicholas Reiner, show us your hands. He's standing on a street corner, just standing there, not running, not hiding, just standing. He raises his hands slowly, empty, no weapon visible. The officers approach carefully, weapons drawn but not pointed directly at him. Professional, cautious. Turn around, hands behind your back. Nick complies, mechanical, like he's not really there. Like his body is following commands, but his mind is somewhere else entirely. They cuff him, read him his rights. You have the right to remain silent. He doesn't speak, doesn't ask why he's being arrested, doesn't protest or resist. They load him into the back of a patrol car. Other officers search his vehicle, looking for evidence, weapons, anything that might be relevant. The drive to the police station is silent. Nick stares out the window, watching Los Angeles pass by. Streetlights, traffic, people living their normal Sunday evening lives, completely unaware that Hollywood royalty has fallen. At the station, they process him. Fingerprints, photos, personal property cataloged and stored. He's given a phone call. Standard procedure. He doesn't make it. Just shakes his head when they offer. No lawyer called, no family member, no friend, nothing. They place him in a holding cell, solo, under watch, the kind of monitoring they use for suspects they're worried might harm themselves. He sits on the bench, head in his hands, still not speaking. The detectives want to interview him, get his statement, his version of events, but his silence is his right, and without a lawyer present, anything he says could be used against him. So they wait. Give him time to process, time to decide if he wants to talk. He doesn't. Hours pass. The night grows late, and Nick Reiner sits in that cell, alone with whatever thoughts are running through his mind. The trial is scheduled for later in 2026. These cases take time. Nick remains in custody, no bail, spending his days in a cell, under observation. His defense team changes. The court-appointed attorney is replaced by a private lawyer, someone who specializes in cases like this. The defense strategy becomes clear. They're not denying Nick was involved. Can't deny that. Evidence is overwhelming. Instead, they're arguing he wasn't in his right mind, that mental illness robbed him of the capacity to form intent. Both sides prepare for battle, and somewhere in the middle is the truth, probably more complicated than either narrative.